In this episode, we talk about some major developments in the Israel Hamas conflict. We also talk about Nobel Laureate Dr. Muhammad Yunus swearing in as the chief advisor to Bangladesh's interim government. But first, we talk about what happened with Vinesh Phogat at the Paris Olympics. Hi, I am Niharika Nanda, and you are listening to Three Things, the Indian Express news show. 7th August came with the heartbreaking news of Vinesh Phogat getting disqualified from the Paris Olympics. After a phenomenal performance in 3 of her previous bouts on 6th August, Vinesh Phogat had become the very first Indian female wrestler to have entered the finals at the Olympics. But she got disqualified because she couldn't lose the required amount of weight for her 50 kg category. Followed by this, yesterday Phogat announced her retirement from wrestling. In a post on social media site X, she wrote, quote, "Mother, wrestling beat me. I lost. Your dream and my courage are all broken. I don't have any more strength now. Goodbye wrestling 2001 to 2024. I will forever be in your debt." Unquote. To understand why she was disqualified and why she could not reach the desired weight for her category, we have Indian Express's Shashank Nair joining us. Shashank, for our listeners, can you begin by telling us what happened on 7th August when Vinesh Phogat went for the weigh-in?
So this was the second day of the competition, and she's in the 50 kg weight category. She was supposed to weigh in at 50 kg, but the scales, according to Mihir Vasavda, who's our reporter in Paris, the scales showed 50.110. And she essentially missed weight by 100 grams. And there's a percentage here and there, which but 100 grams is the estimate of the amount of weight that she missed by. She was supposed to hit 50 or below 50. On day 1 of the competition, she hit 49.9. So that is why she was able to participate in the first day of the competition. And on the second day, she missed out by around 100 grams. There has been an appeal that has been made to the Court of Arbitration Sport over this result. I don't think there's a lot of hope over there.
But Shashank, she was just 100 grams above her required weight. Why was it such a big deal?
Okay, so one of the questions that are coming across is why was it just 100 grams? But it wasn't just 100 grams. See, her walk-around weight, her regular weight, is around 55 to 56 kilos. So she has to cut around 5 kilos before competition. Now she gradually cuts, and then in the last week, that cut becomes really brutal. And for a wrestler like her, the last 500 grams are the toughest to cut. So you're not essentially looking at cutting 100 grams. What you're looking at is an inability to cut the last 100 grams from maybe a 5 kilo weight cut. So she got 4.9 kilos off. And the thing was, after her day 1 competition, she weighed 2.7 kilos over her weight limit. So she weighed 52.7 kilos after her third bout was done. But the crux of it is she stayed up the entire night. She was in a sauna. She was exercising. She was oscillating between going in a sauna and exercising. She didn't sleep one wink. They tried everything. They removed the elastic of her singlet to cut weight down. They cut her hair to get her weight down. They tried basically everything that they could in their power to make sure that, that last few grams were gone. But when 7:30 in the morning hit, she didn't have that 100 grams cut that, she really needed.
And Shashank, you talked about weight cutting. So can you tell us what is that exactly and why is it required for athletes and particularly wrestlers?
So it's a combat athlete thing. So you'll see at the Olympics, boxers will weight cut, wrestlers will weight cut. And one of the reasons they weight cut is because what ends up happening is that there are weight categories. And now there are boxers and wrestlers who can all come exactly at that weight category or be around that weight category, and they can participate in that weight category. But if you are someone who's, say, 55 kilos, as is the case with Vinesh, and you cut 5 kilos down before your competition, and those 5 kilos are usually fluids in your body that you get out through saunas and through exercises. It's sweat and it's water that you remove. What ends up happening is that as soon as your weigh-in is done in the morning, most athletes then hydrate themselves. So you gain that weight back quite quickly. So you'll gain 2 to 3 kilos within the first few hours. And that becomes really crucial because now you're a 52, 53 kilo athlete in a 50 kg weight category. So a lot of athletes you will see in these weight categories will weight cut. And that's basically what a weight cut is. It's essentially a way to make sure that when you come to fight whatever sport you're in, maybe it gives you an added advantage. And that extra 1-2 kilos added advantage is always a plus. So someone like a Vinesh who cuts down maybe like 4-5 kilos in the last week of her, it brings about a massive advantage to her. And it's not the most healthiest. Weight cuts are really not healthy. You are essentially depleting your body of its last reserves of water. That's what is happening over here. And it's not good because your kidneys sometimes don't function. There have been issues that athletes have had in the past. You have to rehydrate immediately if it's not working. So in Vinesh's case, I think that's kind of what happened, because it's something that may have happened before as well, where, like, after a point of time, her body was not producing as much sweat as it should have and wasn't losing that water weight that it was supposed to. And that's just a bad reaction that happens sometimes. And I think it happened at the worst possible time.
You mentioned what all Vinesh and her team tried to do in order to cut her weight. And what are some other techniques that usually athletes indulge in order to cut their weight?
So there were pictures that circulated right after Vinesh's third bout on the first day. There were pictures of her skipping. There were pictures of her stretching, like she was laid out on the floor, she was stretching. And what usually happens in these cases is you go into saunas, you run a lot, you exercise a lot, you're wearing like clothes that make your body feel really warm, and then you exercise so that, the idea is that you produce as much sweat as possible. You lose water as much as possible. So that's exactly what she was doing. She spent the entire night doing that. And unfortunately, again, it came down to the last 100 grams.
But Shashank, why couldn't Vinesh make it on day 2 when she did make it through the weigh-in on day 1?
So until 2017, wrestling competitions from the first round that you were supposed to face to medal rounds all happened on one day. So 2017 onwards, in order to stop, athletes maybe abusing weight cuts, they made it a 2-day competition. But they also made it a rule that, you have to weigh in on 2 days. So what ends up happening now is that athletes have to weigh on the first day for whatever their weight category is. And if they reach the medal rounds, which is if they reach the gold/silver match, or if they reach the repechage rounds, they absolutely have to make weight on the second day as well. This is something that started in 2017. Again, it's just such a tough thing, because the thing is, after the first day, what happens is in the morning, you've got to cut weight. You cut down to 50 kilos. In Vinesh's case, 49.9. Then, because you have to face 3 other bouts all through that day, you have to make sure that you hydrate a little, you eat a little. So like that the moment she got a little bit of hydration, a little bit of nutrition, I think from what I've heard, her weight just jumped to 2.7 kilos through the day. So that just was a real tough break, because they, I think, expected it to be slightly lower. And then on day 2, when they had to make a really tough cut again, one day after making a weight cut, it just didn't work out. And it's a tough thing to do. And especially, I think there are studies that suggest that it's especially tougher for women.
And we know that Vinesh used to compete in the 53 kg category. But why did she had to cut her weight and enter the 50 kg category?
So what ended up happening was that there were 2 world championships that happened in this Olympic cycle from 2021 to 2024. In the 2022 world championships, Vinesh won a bronze medal, and she won a bronze medal in the 53 kg category. After that, the wrestling protests happened, and she was spearheading those wrestling protests. And then what ended up happening was that when she was about to make a comeback, she got injured. She had a knee injury. And Antim Pangal, who's another one of India's best wrestlers in the 53 kg category, she went through. And she also won a bronze medal at the 2023 World Championships. And this bronze medal came with the Paris Olympics quota. So she won the quota over here to go to the Paris Olympics. And the reason Vinesh came to 50 was that because Antim won 53, and there were a lot of other factors as well. But what ended up happening was that Vinesh gave a trial at the 50 kg and at the 53 kg. And later the WFI said that there would be no trial for 53 kg. So she had to take part in the 50 kg because of that.
And Shashank, what did the president of the United World Wrestling had to say about Vinesh's disqualification?
So there were a group of Indian reporters who managed to speak to UWW president, and what the president said was that there could be no concessions that were made, because it wasn't a matter of 1 kilo or 100 grams. It was a matter of the amount of weight she had cut previously just to get to that spot. I think Sakshi Malik, who won the bronze medal in the Rio 2016 Olympics, spoke about it yesterday, and she was like, they should get a medal just for cutting weight. Wrestling is the easy part for wrestlers. The cutting of weight, or Vazan Todna, as they like to say, like, it's just such a tough thing. So I think that was basically what, he was also stating, that it would be tough to give her a concession on a regular weight. She should have made weight. She should have made 50 kilos on day 2, as the rules stated. Another thing the UWW president mentioned was that the whole point of weight categories was made like these weight categories. So in the women's category, for example, there's the 50 kg category, the 53 kg category, the 57 kg. Those are the lower weight categories. And what ended up happening is that they've created those categories so that athletes stay within those weight limits. So they don't want a wrestler who weighs 55 kg to maybe participate in the 50 kg category. They want them to participate in the 53 kg or maybe even the 57. So that was his argument, that it's not healthy. And it is, weight cuts are never a healthy option. It's a last ditch, trying to get a advantage in the playing field thing that athletes do. But it's a very common practice. Many athletes do it. It's not like unheard of or anything on the sort. And there are complications that happen with weight cuts. Often it so happens that, your body stops producing the fluids it needs to. It stops producing the sweat that's needed. You're putting your kidneys in a lot of danger over here as well. That is also something that happens. And when stuff like that happens, you've got to immediately stop the weight cut. So doctors and all are, should be at hand to make sure that that doesn't happen. And she's safe. I think she's healthy now. I think the medical officer over there has made it clear that like her tests have come back fine. She's been rehydrated back again. So physically and like everything, she's healthy, obviously.
And next we talk about the Israel Hamas conflict. Last week brought a major upheaval in the Israel Hamas conflict. On 31st July, Ismail Haniyeh, head of political bureau of Hamas, was killed in Tehran when he was attending the inauguration of the new reformist president of Iran, Masoud Pezeshkian. Following this, on 1st August, the Israeli military confirmed that Hamas military wing chief Mohammad Daif was killed in an airstrike in Gaza on 13th July. The Israeli military hit a compound in Mawasi to the west of Khan Yunis, which killed over 90 people and injured 300, according to Gaza health officials. At the time, there had been no immediate confirmation of Daif's death. The strike had also displaced civilians in nearby tents. To understand these recent developments and decode what they mean for the rest of the world and India, my colleague Flora Swain speaks to Indian Express's diplomatic affairs editor Shubhajit Roy.
Hamas's 2 leaders are gone. One is Ismail Haniyeh, and Israel military confirmed that on the 13th of July, Mohammad Daif, another important Hamas leader, was killed by them in a strike at Khan Yunis in Gaza. Can you tell us a little bit about how these two have been crucial in the entire narrative of Hamas and their assault on Israel?
What we saw first was news of Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh's assassination in Iran. That was on Wednesday morning. And on Thursday, Israel announced another Hamas leader, this time the military commander Mohammad Daif, who is said to be one of the architects of the masterminds of the October 7th terror attacks on Israel. So his assassination was also confirmed, which took place on 13th of July. So these two developments obviously are defining moments in the ongoing Israel-Hamas war since the 7th of October. When Hamas attacked on Israel, the casualty count was about 1,200 Israeli civilians and military personnel. And they also took hostage of about 250 Israelis, some of them also foreign nationals. So after that, Israel obviously responded in militarily, which, earlier it was airstrikes and then was followed up by ground invasion. And so far, according to the latest figures, there are about 35 to 40,000 casualties, which includes Hamas combatants as well as innocent civilians, women, children, also UN staff. So it's been a bloody battle, almost 10 months of war with no end in sight, while a hostage deal and ceasefire talks were ongoing. In that context, the assassination of Ismail Haniyeh is especially a big blow because he was actually one of the negotiators from Hamas's side who was negotiating with Israeli officials, Israeli intelligence officials, Mossad chief, and which was being brokered by Qatar and Egypt and US, to name a few countries. So this particular assassination of Ismail Haniyeh, who was the political face of Hamas based out of Qatar, is extremely important and extremely significant because it essentially sort of kills the ceasefire talks as of now. And after this, the announcement of the killing of Mohammad Daif by Israel, which it says that was killed on 30th of July, adds another layer of complexity in the current situation.
Right. Do you think that this is an advantage for Israel, but at the same time, it could throw a spanner into the ceasefire talks?
Yes, of course. As I said, Ismail Haniyeh was one of the negotiators from the Hamas side. And as Qatar Prime Minister said that, how can there be a negotiation when one side kills the negotiator of the other side? So in this kind of situation, I think it complicates the talks to, free the Israeli hostages from Hamas's captivity, as well as the ceasefire talks. So this definitely derails the efforts and brings high level of tension between the two sides at the fore. And so we'll have to see, how this goes. Obviously, from Israel's point of view, this is the most high-profile blow to Hamas since the 7th of October attacks, and they view it as a major victory, as a major achievement, as taking out two of the top Hamas leaders, one a political face and the other one a military leader. Now the only person, the top brass who's left and who's pretty known is Yahya Sinwar, who is said to be based out of Gaza. So that's where we really have to see how this particular assassinations play out in the next few days.
Absolutely. But in the midst of all this, because Middle East has so many players, and one major player is Iran. And incidentally, it was during the oath taking, or let's say the inauguration of Iran's new president, was the event where Haniyeh had gone to attend, and this assassination happened on Iranian soil. How provoked do you think Iran is? Because Iran's Supreme Leader Khamenei said that Haniyeh's blood will not be wasted. So I think Iran is on another foot of aggression. So how provoked do you think Iran is currently? And what ramifications will be there on that front?
Obviously, the venue of Haniyeh's assassination is a very important element. The fact that the targeted strike assassination took place in Tehran will be seen as a major escalatory move by Iran. Haniyeh had gone there to attend the inauguration of the newly elected Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian. And he had also met the top brass of Iran. And that particular event was also attended by Indian Cabinet Minister, Transport Minister Nitin Gadkari, who was also in Tehran for the same event. And there is, in fact, a group photograph where both of them are there in the same frame with the newly elected Iranian president. The Iranian president is a reformist who was elected early July and ran a campaign on the basis of talks with the West for economic reasons. It puts the newly elected president on his first day in job, a very, very difficult situation. It will be really a test of his skills as a politician, how he negotiates out of this situation, how to respond to the crisis. So I think from Iran's perspective, this will be seen as a major sort of provocation.
And amidst all this, there is the United States of America. Fingers are being pointed at the US that allegations were made that US somehow facilitated this along with Israel. Because obviously US is Israel's biggest ally, their major arms supplier. But at the same time, US has vehemently denied that they don't have anything to do, especially with Haniyeh's assassination. So especially with the US elections 3 months, 4 months down the line, how do you think this is playing for the White House and whoever becomes the next president? How do you think they are going to handle the Middle East tensions?
Well, so far the facts don't indicate that US had helped Israel in this particular strike, in these assassinations. Well, this particular strike or these set of assassinations definitely give a lifeline to Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Now, it's obviously a victory for him, for his establishment, for his government, but he personally has been facing questions on his leadership ever since the 7th of October attacks took place, and his political survival has been at stake with pressure on him to finally strike the hostage deal with Hamas. Because this assassination now has the potential to sort of upend all such efforts for the time being. When Netanyahu came to the US recently to meet the US President, Joe Biden, also he met Kamala Harris as well as addressed the US Congress. And she has signaled that she'll be tougher on Netanyahu regarding the Israeli response on the war in Gaza, as she's very much focused on the younger Democratic voters. With the US's response and backing of Israel on the war in Gaza. Now, this particular situation, if there is escalation, then this adds a layer of complication, because Kamala Harris has been perceived as more vocal on the war in Gaza as compared to President Joe Biden. Now, she will have to rethink and think really hard about how to respond in case there is escalation in the region. So in the next, say, about 100 days are left for the US presidential elections, and we'll see a lot of activity in that from diplomatic front, where all the sides will try to cool down the temperature so that there is no escalation in the region.
Shubhajit, how much of this is going to affect India, and how is New Delhi viewing the current crisis in the Middle East?
Well, India is still sort of watching the developments as, this wider, the region of West Asia is right now almost a tinderbox. Because if there is an escalation by Iran and Hamas, it will impact the entire region. A lot of regional players have already condemned the assassination. Now, because this is a defining moment after almost 10 months of war in Gaza, this has the potential to lead to a broader conflict in the region. And if that happens, it actually really brings to mind the peace and stability in the region, because that is India's immediate concern. Because there are about 9 million Indians who live and work in the region. And that region also supplies almost 2/3 of crude to India. So in this kind of a situation, India will be very careful in how it responds, how it frames its response, especially since it involves a targeted assassination on foreign soil. So from Indian perspective, it will be a very, very important situation to watch, where it would want that there is no escalation and calm and peace prevails in the region.
And in the end, we give an update on the situation in Bangladesh. Yesterday, Nobel Laureate Dr. Muhammad Yunus was sworn in as the chief advisor to Bangladesh's interim government following weeks of intense student protests that led to Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina's resignation and flight from the country. Yunus arrived to Dhaka from Paris, where he had gone for a medical treatment, and appealed to the Bangladeshis to get ready to build the country. Meanwhile, Hasina, who fled to India, is seeking asylum in Europe. Naheed Islam and Asif Mahmood, two student leaders who are both in their mid-20s and led the protests, will join the caretaker government, local media reported. Muhammad Yunus is the winner of the 2006 Nobel Peace Prize. He is a globally recognized economist and has pioneered a system of microfinance that has believed to have helped a large number of Bangladeshis break out of extreme poverty. However, he has shared a frosty relationship with Sheikh Hasina. Under Hasina's rule, Yunus was booked in more than 200 cases, including forgery, money laundering, and embezzlement. Yesterday, President Mohammad Shahabuddin administered the oath to Yunus and 13 additional advisors at Banga Bhavan. Meanwhile, ousted Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina's son, Sajid Wazid Joy, has blamed Pakistan's ISI for fueling unrest in Bangladesh. He told PTI, quote, Indian government must build up international pressure for swift restoration of democracy in Bangladesh, unquote. Indian Visa Application Centre announced that its offices in the country will remain closed until further notice. Prime Minister Narendra Modi extended his best wishes to Yunus, expressing hopes for a swift return to normalcy in Bangladesh, which would also ensure the safety of Hindus and other minorities. In a post on X, he wrote, quote, "My best wishes to Professor Muhammad Yunus on the assumption of his new responsibilities. We hope for an early return to normalcy, ensuring the safety and protection of Hindus and all other minority communities. India remains committed to working with Bangladesh to fulfill the shared aspirations of both our peoples for peace, security and development." Unquote. You were listening to Three Things by the Indian Express. Today's show was edited and mixed by Suresh Pawar and produced by me, Niharika Nanda. If you like the show, then do subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. You can also recommend the show to someone you think will like it. Share it with a friend or someone in your family. It's the best way for people to get to know about us. You can also tweet us at Express Audio and write to us at podcasts@indianexpress.com.